Allah, Ya Allah, Allah, Ya Allah, Allah.
So when the Prophet ﷺ told us this is Sarat al-Mustaqim, when we understand about all those deviations that we discussed before, we understand that if there's a shaitan who's taking us, who's ready and willing to kind of lure us off the path, and then there's a bigger shaitan who's willing to lure us off the path, and then we have to fight those shayateen to get back. That means the same mentality, the same spiritual state that we had that caused us to deviate cannot be the same spiritual state and the same mindset when we want to come back to the path. In fact, we've got to approach it from a much higher perspective. We've got to approach it from a stronger iman. Right? So already there's something inside the soul that says, I want to go back to Sirat al-Mustaqim. There's something along the path that says, I've made a mistake and I want to make tawbah. Right? Because tawbah literally means to turn. Right? So already there's something that says, I want to turn. I want to turn around. I want to get back to Sirat al-Mustaqim. I want to get back to Quran and Sunnah. I want to get back to the human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me to be. Right? Because this is the reality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that He created us for His worship. Right? He didn't create us to be the dog and the pig and the devil. Because these things are not going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He created us to worship Him. So that is our origin. That is our nature. Right? With the desire to be near and close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we want. But we have to understand that when we go off the path, when we get into states of ghafla, when we get into states of heedlessness, right? Then we have to understand what has grown, what nafs, how is my lower self and my desires, that pig, that dog, my anger, how have I allowed it to grow and to fester and become this big demon that I'm now fighting? Right? And what are the steps that I need to take in order to rectify myself? Now, you need to know the qualities. What are your angelic qualities? Your individual angelic qualities, right? Are you a person that increasing in salah? And all of us should be doing that, right? Praying qiyam al-layl. What is it? Recitation of Quran, making dhikr, making tasbih, nasheed, doing acts of service, acts of khidmah. What is it that's readily available inside of you that you're more inclined towards, that's going to benefit you and strengthen your soul and strengthen your spirit, that's going to allow you to fight those demons so that you can come back to Sirat al-Mustaqim. That's going to give you what you need in order to dissipate the evil inside of us and exaggerate the good that's inside of us. So the first thing about knowledge of self, erase this. In knowledge of self, Imam al-Ghazali, he brings us to a few questions. He says, you must know, what are you in yourself? Right? Why does he use it in this way? What are you in yourself? Meaning that, of course, we're not talking about the outer self. He's not talking about the exterior self. He's saying, what are you? Are you more angelic? Are you more like the pig? Are you more like the dog? Are you more like the devil? Inside the shell of the body, what are you in your soul? Who are you in reality? Right? And this requires some true knowledge. You've got to know what are the talents and your skills, your inclinations, right? Your inclinations, what are your strengths, your weaknesses? You need to take some time and truly investigate this. You need to take some time and truly investigate this. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik alayhi. Because once you take the time to investigate this and to map it out, and it changes over time. Who you were yesterday is not who you are today. What worked yesterday, that's not going to necessarily work today. Why? The climate has changed. The season has changed. The season of your life has changed. Therefore, your strengths and weaknesses are not the same. Right? I just had a birthday and it I realized very quickly what strengths and energy I had at 20 is not the energy I have today. And that's with all of us. So this is not what I did, how I did that 20 years ago. I researched that 10 years ago, right? I know who I am. No, who are you today? With your present life circumstances, in your current season of your life, who are you? And what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Where are you excelling and where are you falling behind? Particularly, especially in your ibadah. You might say, wow, I wish I could get back to that time of my life where, I was praying qiyam al-layl every night and I was making, so much dhikr every morning. And what happened? Something changed inside of you, right? Not only your condition changed, but who you are changed. And so therefore you don't operate at that same level. You must investigate this. You must find out who are you today, right? So the next question Imam Ghazali rahimahumullah asks, he says, where are you from? This is so key. Where are you from? Most of us think that this has no consequence on our life, but it has a lot of consequence on in molding and shaping who you are and what your inclinations are. Right? For example, I was born in the South, but the South is a lot more laid back and than, let's say, the East Coast. The East Coast and the more you get toward the Northeast, it's a much more hardcore, fast-paced living. So there's certain qualities that about where I live that affect who I have become, that have affected, and even whether or not you're living in a fast-paced lifestyle as opposed to, let's say, when I lived in Yemen, which is a much slower lifestyle, right? That's going to affect how I think, how I see things, whether or not instead of, I have lots of time to reflect in this place, but in this place, I have to set my schedule exactly almost to the minute to make sure I have time to reflect. I have to schedule that, right? That affects my relationship with Allah. So I have to have knowledge of self, but that's only one aspect of where you come from, right? Whether or not just your geography in the world, your cultural background, your personal familial background. What was your family situation like? That matters into molding and shaping who you are, which molds and shapes your relationship with Allah. Whether or not we have father issues, right? Whether or not we have mother issues. This is because the father represents a certain role in our understanding. The father represents a certain role in understanding in our consciousness. So whether he represents protection and a certain level of a different kind of reliance and trust. So if that's missing from my life, I might recognize that I'm a mistrustful person. I might recognize that that I'm the one. It's me against the world. I might have that mentality. It's me against the world because I don't believe there's anybody who has protection, and I don't believe there's anybody who's got my back. So that's going to affect my relationship with Allah. And how definitely it's going to affect how I treat people. Whether or not I'm trusting them, so therefore my character is affected, how I'm going to deal with them. Whether or not I really believe Allah is going to protect me, or whether or not I believe I've got to do everything myself. In that scenario, tawakkul may be difficult for me. Right? Learning to rely on Allah may become difficult. So I need to recognize, where am I from? What has happened in my family that has molded and shaped who I am and how I think and how I interact with people, and ultimately how I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to investigate this from a geographical standpoint, did I grow up in a political household, an apolitical household, a household that was compassionate and loving, or whether or not I grew up in a household that was strict, just discipline and a dictatorship, because that affects even the way I view Allah, right? Even the way is Allah. Am I going to teach my children haram, 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 haram because I grew up in a dictatorship, right? Or am I going to teach my children about the vastness, Allah al-wasi'a, Allah al-latif al-khabir, right? Am I going to teach that because I grew up in a home that was loving and compassionate? Right? This is something for us to think about as parents. What kind of, as we're molding and shaping our children, ultimately we're molding and shaping their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to investigate this aspect of our lives so that we understand from where we're coming from. You have to have knowledge of self. Have to have knowledge of self. The next thing Imam Ghazali asks in this text, once you know where you're from, right, then you can investigate where are you going. Where are you going? Now, ultimately, every Muslim is going to say, I want to go to Jannah. Which level of Jannah are you aiming for? We talked about in the last class having high aspirations. Right? So you just aiming, I just need to get in. I just want to get in the door. Or you aiming for Jannah to Firdaus al-A'la. Right? Because that's a different relationship with Allah. That's a different path. That requires a different level of work, a different level of intention, a different level of purification, a different level of work. If you say, where am I going? And that's long term. Right? You should always begin with the end in mind. Right? But also, where are you going on a day-to-day basis? Do you have a goal set for yourself? Today I'm going to be a better parent. Today I'm going to be a better spouse. I'm making a migration away from treachery and backbiting and gossip. I'm going towards better character. I'm going towards a better reality for my family, right? I'm going towards building a stronger community. I'm moving away from this selfish Islam where it's just me in a corner, me, and I'm just, overly concerned with myself, to I'm migrating toward a more communal perspective, or I'm migrating toward a more global perspective. Where are you going? Right? And what skills and talents are going to help you get there? Because where are you going? Those intentions are going to formulate again how you approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next thing is, he says, and what's your purpose? Right? For what reason are you traveling? For what reason? He asked the question, what reason are you traveling? Right? And you've got to be honest. Well, I'm going towards truth, but na'udhu billah, because I'm a liar. Or I'm going towards honesty because I'm a thief. Or I'm going towards being truthful in my dealings with other people, because truthfully I've been underhanded in my business dealings. Right? Or I'm moving towards a community effort because I know that I operate usually from a position of selfishness. Right? I'm used to just living by myself and doing my own thing. So my hard work is Iyaka na'budu, to worship in a community. Right? And that's major. So you have to know, what's your purpose? What's your reason? What's your reason? What do you want? Right? So I want to eradicate the evil in myself. I want to elevate. I want to raise in rank. I want to be increased in understanding. I want the expansion of my heart. But even that, why? Why? Even for every question, why do I want that? And in the end, our purpose has to be because I want to be with Allah. I want to be with Allah. I want to worship Allah from a pure state, from a pure heart, with true sincerity. Right? Not, I want to be knowledgeable. I want to have knowledge so I can be knowledgeable. No. I want to be knowledgeable so I can worship Allah in truth, in reality, in haqiqah. Because Allahu al-haq. Allahu musta'an. The next thing is what brings you misery and joy? What brings you misery and joy? What brings misery and joy? Right? What are the things that make you sad? What are the things that, when you experience them in your life, you find you find a darkness inside your soul, or you find a confusion, you find yourself in a sad state, because this is a choice. Once you have the tools and the power to be able to make that choice, and the tools and the power of being able to make that choice comes from knowing, oh, when I do this, I get miserable. So now you have the choice to do it or to not do it. Right? When I spend time, when I spend time with the Quran, that brings me joy. Right? When I'm able to spend time with my family, in a certain place at a certain time, that brings me joy. So now you need to know, okay, these are the things I need to do in order to bring about this joy in my life. And that takes observation. That takes observation. Because misery is a little bit different from than just like a momentary sadness, right? Momentary bouts of sadness. Misery is more long term. Misery is like, we've been operating in this mode. Usually this happens a lot with husband and wife. We've been operating in this mode, or with your children. We've been in this frame for a long time. We've been, so now all of a sudden we want to get divorced when now billah. Because you've been operating. You've been taking one step towards another step towards another step towards misery. That didn't happen. You woke up one day and decided that's it. No, that was one choice, one decision at a time. The same thing happens with the parents and children, right? How is it that it's like, I don't want to spend time with you. I'm not going to visit that parent. I don't want anything to do with you. They don't make me happy. No, that was a relationship that happened, one decision, one step, one interaction at a time. And that's applied in every aspect of our life. So if we begin to investigate these, right? And if we find in ourselves there's something that is anti-deen, akhirah, meaning it's not going to take us towards Jannah. It's not going to bring us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I love to do it. Right? I like to do this thing, and it makes me feel good. Then we need to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we can clean up the heart. And this brings us to the next aspect, because the heart, as Imam Ghazali talks about, the heart is the king, right? The heart is the sultan, right? If your heart is not clean, you're not able to reflect it properly on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why when the human being has a dream, meaning that he goes to sleep, and all the faculties, the body is laid to rest. And what comes alive? Because what comes alive? The heart comes alive, right? And you see things and you hear things in a dream. Obviously, this is not with the physical eye, because they're closed. So you're able to see things in another reality. And the heart is seeing things, and the heart is hearing things. And this is really a door opener to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Imam Malik rahimahullah, he used to always say, I never slept, I never closed my eyes except that I saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How is that? Because his heart was so pure, he was able to reflect his heart into that aspect of a pure portion of the barzakh. Right? There are other people, they see true dreams. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the truer the believer, the truer the dream. Why is that? Because his heart is able to reflect Allah Mahfud, and he's able to see aspects of things that have happened, that are happening, and that will happen. Right? So he said, I dreamt that, I saw that. Right? So this is where heaven and earth, and on the highest of levels, this is heaven and earth begin to come together. Because the heart is at a pure state and is able to reflect itself upon that which is pure. But the opposite of that, if the heart is reflecting itself, if the mirror of the heart is murky, right? It's not going to be able to see clearly. So it's not able to see happiness, joy, peace, love, light even. Because it's got all of these veils, and all of these veils of darkness and veils of murkiness and ugliness on top of the heart, so it's not able to see the truth of the light beyond it. It's not able to see the beauty beyond it, right? And it's not able to see beyond that because it's too murky. It's too murky to do that. So when the heart is murky and it's in a darkened state, when light approaches it, it doesn't see the light for its reality. It may see specks here and there, but it doesn't see the light for its fullness and its brightness and its brilliance. So this is the same condition. If you find yourself enjoying things from a dark of the things of darkness, you find yourself enjoying that, you need to clean up the mirror of the heart, right? Because the heart in this case, as I said, that's the Khalifa, that's the Sultan, right? Because then it's going to be able, if the heart is king, then it's going to be able to put all of these other servants, the dog in place. It's going to be able to put the pig in its place. It's going to be even put the devil in its place. Then the emotions that we experience become ambassadors to the heart. They begin to inform the heart about different aspects of the dunya. Now we begin to get into the complexes of the human being, in the greatness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created the human being, that He's able to have all of these faculties. Almost like he has a sun inside his chest, right? And in Surah An-Nur, Allah talks about the heart that is inside of a niche, right? A light that is inside of a niche, a well-oiled lamp. So inside of us, we have this light inside of us that's able to shine and to reflect. And the same thing, so the heart, like the spiritual heart, the physical heart, pumps out blood throughout the body, giving strength and ability to the limbs, right? To the arms and to the legs, and even to the brain, by which it's able to think and to function. Right? And the same thing with the spiritual heart. So if the spiritual heart is able to send out light and able to send out iman and able to send out a connection to Allah Ta'ala, to the other limbs of the body, then the hands are busy in khidmah, the feet are going to travel toward the masjid or towards the majlis of khair, right? Then the stomach is going to fast, then the tongue is going to make dhikr. Right? So as this sunlight is spreading out beams, then you become a person of light. Right? Then your actions are of light. But first, you've got to investigate this. First you've got to know yourself. You've got to know who you are. You've got to investigate all of these qualities. Right? So this is the chapter of the knowledge of self. When we begin to realize how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with all of these faculties, when we begin to understand how the eyes inform the heart, and how the tongue informs the heart, and how the ears informs the heart, that these are all like rivers to the ocean of the heart, we begin to understand, subhanallah, how magnificent is Allah, that He would say, none shall benefit except the one who comes to me with a sound heart. How magnificent is Allah that He would create, that He would put it in the center, right? The center of the self, and spread that out. How magnificent and powerful is Allah that He would create us with the human being create us with the state of being able to know Him. How powerful is Allah that He would create us with a logic that would begin to imply. To employ our logic, that we would be able to come to the knowledge of the existence of Allah through the intellect, through rationale, right? Even through mathematics and science, we could arrive at the existence of Allah. And this is the beauty also of Imam al-Ghazali, why he's called Hujjat al-Islam, right? And then we begin to realize that which sickens the heart, even on a physical level. If I eat a bunch of junk food, if I eat a bunch of food with fat and cholesterol, if I eat negative things that are going to poison my physical heart, then I realize my appetite is the problem. My greed is the problem. And greed is not a problem of the body. Greed is a problem of the heart. Greed is a problem of the mind. Greed is a problem of the character. So how magnificent is Allah that He would allow these physical things to testify to the spiritual condition. Right? So then we begin to travel into the next chapter, when we begin to understand the greatness of the human being, how magnificent Allah has created the human being. Then we begin to arrive in the next chapter, which is knowledge of Allah. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك.